We will go on now to number 11, Finance Committee Report. Thank you to Vice Chair Norton for doing that today. So go ahead.
Thank you very much. Okay, Finance only has 2 action items to bring before you today. The first one is the request for the board discretionary funds. The recommended action is, I move that the board approve the USB staff request for use of USBE's discretionary funds.
Okay, any I have a little bit different motion here. Is that the motion that came out of committee?
It's the motion that I have on my printout from backup. Let me see.
Okay, so the
you wanna
motion
bring up
is,
the one?
is that the board, it's the same thing. Is
Okay.
that the board approves a portion of the remaining state funds to fund requests 1, 2, and 3 totaling $310,000 and a portion of the remaining federal lease funds for requests 4, 5, and 6, a totaling of $383,420. Okay, discussion to that motion? Board Member Earl?
Yes, I have an amendment, but I'm trying to actually, what am I looking at? Sorry.
I don't know.
I am under Finance Committee. Where is the actual approval of the items?
13.2.
I'm on 13.2. Which item is giving specifics to where the 4 things we're approving?
Would be, that's okay. The Vice Chair Davis suggested you look at the quad charts.
Okay. Okay, I have 2 amendments. The one is the Rural School Association, and I just, I guess the clarification is,
Okay, wait a minute. Will you make your motion first? Okay, so tell me what it is you're doing with the rural schools.
that the rural schools funding request come from the superintendent's funding for this year?
Okay, so,
Isn't that where it was supposed?
so your motion is to not take it out of our discretionary funds, but to take it out of the superintendent's funds?
Yes,
Okay,
as originally intended.
okay. So I don't see that there's a lot of pain coming from our staff on that one. Do we have any discussion to that motion? Jenny, do you have more than that, or are you good?
No, just that's where I understood that was coming, and that's why we funded it at twice the level. So,
Okay,
or
and
double.
what is the amount on that? Is that
$33,420.
$1,420. Okay, and 32 cents. I'm just kidding. Okay, all right. Yes, we do need a second. Thank you, Board Member Hutchings. Okay, any more discussion to that motion? Vice Chair Davis.
2 questions. 1, can we hear from somebody on staff about that change? And 2, were these voted on unanimously in the Finance Committee?
Deputy Superintendent Jones?
Deputy Superintendent of Operations Scott Jones. So real quickly, back in November, the board had approved providing the superintendent $200,000 from your discretionary account. Previous years, you had provided the superintendent $150,000. During the discussion to that motion to provide her $200,000, the understanding was that $50,000 would go to the URSA. As we moved from November up until the Finance Committee last month, it appeared that the superintendent could use all $200,000, so we were looking at changing or taking the 33.5, which, became more solidified since November, as well as how much exactly IRSA needed from your account. But we checked with the superintendent's assistant, Sherry, and the superintendent can follow the original intent, right? Using her $200,000 to get it to pay the 33.420 from the $200,000. Does that answer your question?
Does that answer your question? Okay, so is there any uncomfortableness with that? Okay. Seeing no more, well, your light's on for something else, right, Jenny? You can leave it on. Okay, seeing no more discussion, all in favor of, let me repeat the motion, to take the 33,000, 420,000 from discretionary funds from, can't be the whole motion. I don't have it in front of me, and take it out of the superintendent's discretionary funds for Ursa. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? So if you can write that up, you win, Sybil. Okay, all right, go ahead.
I have a second motion that on the anti-bullying position, that we revisit it in 2 years. We fund it for 2 years, revisit it, and adjust as needed at that time. So my motion is, sorry, I'll get this eventually. My motion is to fund the anti-bullying position for 2 years at $150,000 and revisit it at that point.
And revisit it in 2 years?
Yes.
That's part of your motion.
Yes.
So did you? Can you read that motion again?
Yes, I'll read it again.
Okay,
Or state it again. My motion is to use $150,000 from the discretionary funds to fund a 2-year anti-bullying temporary position.
do I have a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, a second, Klein. Do you want to speak to that motion?
Yeah, I kind of already did, but yeah. Just that I think that we do have some specific needs for this position currently, and I'd like us to revisit that before, to address whatever additional needs we may have or any change in those policies for this particular entity 2 years down the road. So I think just a funding for 2 years and then continuation of that down the road.
Thank you. Scott, I do have a question, and maybe one of the others are going to ask this. So how much did the Finance Committee request to be for the bullying position? And is there still enough discretionary money to supplant that?
Okay, so the answer to the first question is the original request was for a total of $300,000 from the discretionary funds to fund a part-time, time-limited position to 4 years. So $300,000 would cover 4 years for that position. So what Board Member Earl is doing is she's amending it to do 2 years, so that's half, right? $150,000. So, and there's quote-unquote plenty of money, I mean, even with, if the board approved the original request to fund the $300,000, we'd still be okay. We'd still have money left over. Not much, but it would be pretty much obligated. So
Okay.
basically, you're just taking $150,000 off the original request with her amendment. 2 years versus 4 years.
So, and was a partial before that, a partial position?
Yeah,
For
it's
the 4
always
years.
been, it's just the duration of it.
Okay, thank
So it's always been a time limit, half-time, or part-time, time-limited position for 4 years. She's proposing an amendment to make it part-time, time-limited for 2 years, $150,000
Okay,
versus
thank you.
4
I
years.
just really need
No,
that.
no, it's fine, man.
Board Member Lear?
I have a question for those who hire these days in this staff. I'm just concerned that hiring the caliber of person you want to do this work, even though it's half-time, for only 2 years is going to be more of a problem than if you can offer them 4 years and understanding that if somebody doesn't work out, that you don't keep them. But that's essentially an at-will situation. So are we going to be able to attract a higher caliber of person, given again that this is an employee's market that we're living in?
Right now.
if it's a 4-year position as opposed to 2-year. Just your opinion.
Go ahead.
Deputy Superintendent Patty Norman, my opinion is that when we've been trying to hire staff, it's always more a better recruitment strategy to be able to offer them a more secure position. So a position that would be 4 years would be something that someone would apply for before a 2-year position. That's just something that has played out. If you found the same, Deputy Jones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, typically when we advertise part-time, time-limited positions, the length of the time limit typically does, the longer it is, it can compute to having more people apply for the position because it is, longer than 2 years, longer than 3 years, or, less. But clearly understood, though, that it is part-time, time-limited. We advertise it to the T on that,
And
so very
just a
clear.
follow-up comment, and that just, given that we can part ways with an employee at any time in that time, I feel like the recruitment opportunity is better, especially given these two experts' ideas. It's a better recruiting opportunity if we can do it for 4 years, given that we still can part ways with someone who is not what the agency wanted. Thanks.
Thank you. Board Member Hutchins?
Yeah, thank you. This was something in Finance Committee that we had a lot of questions about and discussed it at some length, mostly because, at least on my part, having a part-time temporary position for 4 years is kind of a strange thing. And trying to understand how that works and who would be interested in a position like this. And also, what does this person do? I feel like the explanation was still a little murky in my mind. And so honestly, I'm happy with this because it gives us a chance to see what this position does and help us understand how it benefits better than committing to a 4-year. I don't think it's a matter of that employee's, the quality of their work. It's more of the position itself and what benefit it brings to the agency and to schools.
Thank you. Board Member Norton, did you have a comment, or are you just leaving
No,
your light on?
just-
Okay. Board Member Earl?
May I speak? Yes, my understanding is it's not, we're hiring a new person. We already have people that we've divided the powers division of responsibilities out into. We already know who will fill this position. We already know the direction they're going. That's not accurate then.
No, it's a new position, ma'am. It's a part-time, time-limited new position go ahead, Patty.
Yes, so it is part-time, time-limited. We do have someone who has been doing this position. It's Amy Steele-Smith, and it has been more than a one-person job. And then we've added new requirements to it, especially when we're coming up on 428, and then some of the other things that were identified in the recommendations from the study session previously when they presented. So they being the school safety staff has, and the prevention staff has gone and then created a job descriptions for both of those, and they've delineated out the duties that show the distinct differences between what each of them would be doing and what that would look like. So I'm more than happy to forward on to the rest of the board if needed.
Board Member Straight?
Yes, I don't want to question the Finance Committee because they know more about it than I do. So I've heard comments from the Finance Committee, but I just, in my mind, I wonder, would we have the flexibility to hire someone for 2 years at full-time? Because it seems like, to me, that the work is up front, and by the time we get in 2 years, then we'll have an idea of whether we want to extend that or what the pluses or minuses, or am I completely up the creek on that?
So Chair, if I may, Madam
Go ahead.
Chair. So that is always an option. You can do that, except when we do full-time, because of the Affordable Care Act, you have to provide benefits as well. So within the scope of $300,000, you could hire somebody for full-time 2 years at that rate, right? If you use the $300,000 towards that, hopefully Deborah's shaking her head north and south back there saying you could do it. The key here is that what we're trying to accomplish here is when you have your discretionary funds, keep in mind that's one-time money. So that money's going to run out. And that's even back to Board Member Lear's point, you know, either way, it's still a temporarily funded position, right? Even if you do it full-time for 2 years, that money is one-time money and it's going to run out. So that's where the balancing act comes in between, you know, a decision to hire somebody for 4 years, part-time, time limited, or especially with the project and the scope of the project and the research and development that's behind it. You know, my understanding from the staff was is they saw the value more in a part-time, time-limited over 4 years than they did 2 years full-time benefited employee because of just how much time and effort it's going to take to research and develop the holistic approach to anti-bullying coming out of the study session. However, it is an option. I mean, that's certainly an option.
Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I think it was an opinion on my own question. I think that I'm going to go with what came out of the discussion, which has said to be quite long and detailed, and this is the recommendation that came out, so I'm going to respect that, and I'm not for this amendment. I'm going to respect the way it came out from committee.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no more discussion, the motion before the board, I got to make sure. Motion before the board would be to change the $300,000 four-year position to a $150,000 two-year position from the board's discretionary funds. Part-time position.
Part-time, time limited.
And time-limited position.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. Okay, well, those who are an aye, please raise your hand. Ayes are Board Member Hymas, Board Member Klein, Board Member Earl, Board Member Hutchings, and that motion fails. So we're back to the original motion. Board Member Norton, will you? I just told the ayes to say it, so, thank you, though. No, you can. Okay, so the motion before the board is that the board approves using a portion of the remaining state funds to fund requests 1, 2, and 3 totaling $310,000. Is that right? We didn't change anything else, did we? And a portion of the remaining federal lease funds totaling $383,420 minus $33,420. Is that where it is? Is that where it is? For the URSA, okay. Okay, seeing no discussion, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? I maybe said that wrong, but we already got it.
You're fine. We got it, ma'am. Thank you all very much.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Norton? I should say Vice Chair Norton?
Yes, so our next action item is number 13.3. This has to do with the Cambian contract for assessment. The committee moves that the board approve executing cost options 2A, the Spanish Transadaptive Item Development and Delivery. Item 4A, a writing prompt development in grades 5 and 8. And item 5, system functionality for remote testing. And item development contained in the CAI cost proposal and contract.
Okay, so the motion before the board is that the board approves executing the cost options 2A, Spanish Transadaptive item development and delivery, 4A, writing prompt development in grades 5 and 8, and number 5, system functionality for remote testing, and item development containing the CAI cost proposal and contract. Discussion to that motion, we have Vice Chair Davis.
I probably should have read this, and maybe it says in there, but do we have complete kind of veto control over the writing prompt items and the content items for the item development? Do we have autonomy over those if we get one we don't like?
Assistant Superintendent Darren Nilsson will address that.
Thank you, Vice Chair Norton. Darren?
Darren Nielsen, Assistant Superintendent. Chair Davis, you're correct. This just authorizes the use of these funds for development, which has been ongoing previous years. Item development in Utah has a series of steps that we go through, including Utah teachers writing the item prompts with support from our vendors and the staff here at the USBE, and then all the way through a parent review panel for our RISE items.
Okay, Board Member Earl?
And with that, if we wanted feedback on those, we could contact you, right? And what I mean by that is those that are coming out of the review process, parent review process, would just need to contact you to get the feedback?
Yeah, let me ask a clarifying question. When you talk about feedback, just the report that is generated after the,
Specifically, the questions that have been asked to be polled or addressed.
yeah.
Yeah.
You good there? Okay. Okay, so the motion before the board is that the board approves executing the cost options to a Spanish trans-adaptive item development and delivery for a writing prompt development in grades 5 and 8. Number 5, system functionality for remote testing and item development contained in the CAI cost proposal and contract. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No. 1 no. Board Member Klein? Thank you, everyone. Is that it, Board Member Norton?
That is-
Vice Chair Norton?
That is all of our action items.
Thank you, Vice Chair Norton.